The instant I heard the nauseating hiss of my truck tires going flat, I knew something was off. Way off. The kind of off that could push a man to the brink of doing something illegal. I climbed out of my truck, the scorching heat of Dusty Hollow slamming into me like a furnace, and there they were, rows of steel spikes gleaming under the sun, stabbed right across my driveway. My tires were toast, my groceries trapped inside a vehicle that wasn't going anywhere, and standing just a few feet away, arms folded, a smug grin smeared across his face, was Leonard Grayson, the self-proclaimed overlord of our homeowners association. "Afternoon, Sheriff," Leonard drawled, his tone oozing with mock courtesy. "Looks like you rolled over a restricted zone." I took a deep breath, counted to 3, and reminded myself I'd hauled in guys for less than what was boiling inside me right then. "Leonard," I said, my voice low, my eye twitching, "why are there police-grade spikes on a public road?" His smirk widened. "HOA Ordinance 47B. Unapproved supply deliveries mess with the neighborhood's uniformity, so we took steps." He waved a hand at the ruined road. "For the community's sake." I glanced at my truck, mentally cataloging the essentials inside: bread, coffee, dog food, a six-pack, and the birthday cake I'd custom-ordered for Mrs. Elsie, the kindest old lady in town, now likely smashed. I stepped closer, tipping my hat. "Leonard, you know what I do for a living, right?" He didn't blink, just chuckled like I was some kid he was humoring. "Sure, Sheriff, you enforce the law. But here, we've got our own rules." That's when it hit me. This wasn't just a bunch of retirees griping about lawn heights. This was a calculated, power-hungry crew, a neighborhood tyranny run by clipboard-toting control freaks who'd crowned themselves kings. And me, the actual elected sheriff of Dusty Hollow, had just landed on their hit list. I clenched my jaw, took another slow breath. "Leonard, you've got 30 seconds to pull those spikes out before I do it myself." He shook his head, whipping out a notepad. "Sheriff, that's a violation. $500 fine." My eye twitched harder. A small crowd of neighbors had gathered, some smirking, others uneasy. I spotted Mrs. Elsie, leaning on her cane, peering at the spikes. "Leonard," she called, "I need my insulin delivery." It was due today. He didn't even glance her way. "Should have filed the medical exemption form 2 weeks ago. Rules are rules, Mrs. Elsie." I stared at him. "Blocking medicine now?" He shrugged. "It's about keeping order. I'd seen bank heists, car chases, even gunfights in my career, but nothing as twisted as an HOA drunk on its own authority." I turned to my truck, ready to yank those spikes out myself, when a shrill voice sliced through the air. "That's another violation." It was Pamela, the HOA's second-in-command, decked out in pastel green, her visor perched low like a battle helmet. She waved a paper in the air. "Any attempt to remove HOA-installed safety measures triggers a $1,000 fine and a temporary suspension of neighborhood privileges." I turned to her, then back to Leonard. "What's a neighborhood privilege?" Leonard's smirk crept back. "Oh, just the basics. Trash pickup, lawn care, mail delivery." They weren't just fining me. They were threatening to cut me off from essentials. I rubbed my face, forcing calm. "All right, fine. You want to play? Let's play." I walked off, leaving my truck stranded, tires shredded, groceries spoiled. Passing Mrs. Elsie, I gave her a nod. "Don't worry, ma'am. I'll get your insulin." She flashed a knowing smile. "Give him hell, Sheriff." That night, I rounded up the neighborhood's most fed-up residents. Tom, whose holiday lights got seized last year for being too cheerful. Lila, slapped with a $200 fine for her wrong shade of purple mailbox. And Huge Jack, cited twice for excessive grill smoke. It was payback time. The plan was straightforward. Under cover of night, we'd slip onto HOA turf and rip out the spike strips, quick and clean. But just as we started, headlights flooded the street. The HOA's private police had rolled up. Leonard wasn't just throwing fines anymore. He'd upgraded to full-on law enforcement roleplay. 5 golf carts pulled in, each driven by an HOA enforcer in a matching polo, armed not with real guns, but paintball rifles and flashlights. Leonard stepped out of his cart like some budget warlord. Well, looks like we've got rule breakers." Tom, beside me, muttered, "This has to be the lamest gang war ever." Leonard pointed at the spikes. "Anyone touches HOA property gets fined. And, if needed, Detained until the HOA tribunal rules. I squinted. Leonard, you're talking like you run a damn country. He smirked. In this neighborhood, I do. The golf carts boxed us in, trapping us in our own streets. This wasn't about spikes anymore. The HOA had gone full martial law, and I was about to smash every one of their rules. When those HOA golf carts formed their little blockade, I knew we were in for a wild night. Leonard sat in the lead cart, arms crossed like he'd just declared a state of emergency in a war zone instead of a quiet suburb. His polo-clad minions flanked him, clutching paintball guns like they were storming a fortress. It was absurd, but it pissed me off. I took a step forward, keeping my tone steady. Leonard, move your toys before I treat this like a real crime scene. He smirked. Trespassing on HOA-protected property is a crime, Sheriff. Can't let you or your rebel crew mess with community safety measures. I glanced at Tom, who looked equal parts stunned and entertained. Tom, did he just call spike strips safety measures? Tom nodded gravely. Yep. We're in an HOA dictatorship now. Leonard cleared his throat, motioning to Pamela, who, of course, had a fancy document ready. She waved it like a flag. Per HOA Ordinance 92C, unauthorized attempts to remove security measures result in a mandatory $2,000 fine, a 6-month suspension of homeowner privileges, and, if necessary, community detention. I stared. Community detention? What's that supposed to mean? Leonard grinned. It means we can hold you in an HOA-approved spot until the tribunal convenes. Tom whispered. Sheriff, did they just make up their own jail? I rubbed my face. I'd busted robbers, broken up bar fights, chased fugitives through the desert, but getting threatened with detention by retirees obsessed with rules? New low. Huge Jack cracked his knuckles. So, Sheriff, we taking him out? Before I could reply, Leonard whistled, and one of his goons, a twitchy guy with the energy of a yappy dog, fired his paintball gun. A yellow splat hit the ground near Jack's boots. Pamela gasped theatrically. Warning shot. Warning shot. Jack looked at the paint, then up at the shooter. Did you just shoot at me? The enforcer stepped back, clutching his gun like it'd save him from a bear. This is authorized HOA force. You're in violation. Jack lunged, snatching the paintball gun from his hands. The guy yelped and scurried behind Leonard's cart. I raised my hands. All right, everyone, cool it before someone gets hurt. Leonard, you're way over the line. You're blocking emergencies, medicine, groceries. You're messing with real law enforcement. This stops tonight. Leonard's smug look flickered, but he doubled down. You've got no authority here, Sam. Not in HOA jurisdiction. Tom snorted. What's that supposed to mean? We're in the same town. Pamela waved her paper. The HOA charter lets us self-govern all neighborhood matters. Disagree? Take it to the tribunal. I crossed my arms. And when's that meet? Leonard fake pondered. Oh, about 6 months from now. The crowd groaned. Lila stepped up, furious. This is insane. I've been fined for my gnome, my trash cans, and now I can't get mail? You're not in charge. You're a bully. Leonard stayed cool. I was elected fair and square. Tom scoffed. By who? You, Pamela, and that guy who left town. Before Leonard could answer, my phone buzzed. A text from Pamela. Check your email. Sent you something. I glanced at her. She was still nodding to Leonard's rant. Suspicious. I opened the email. My jaw dropped. She'd sent the HOA's financials, proof Leonard's fines were funneled into his personal account. He wasn't just a dictator. He was a crook. I turned my phone to the crowd. Folks, check this out. I read aloud. Fines last year, over 50 grand. Where'd it go? Not upkeep, not improvements, straight to Leonard Grayson's personal account. The crowd exploded in angry chatter. Leonard's face went beet red. That's private. I smirked. Not when you're scamming the neighborhood. Pamela gasped, clutching her chest. Leonard, how could you? We trusted you. He spun on her. You sent that, didn't you? She shrugged, all innocent. I just wanted transparency. The crowd surged, demanding answers, refunds. Leonard backpedaled, losing grip. I stepped up, calm but firm. Here's the deal. Call off your goons, pull the spikes, and refund every dime you took. Leonard floundered. Then, in a last-ditch move, yanked a remote from his pocket and hit a button. An alarm blared. and the HOA's massive security gates slammed shut behind us. He grinned like a madman. "You want to play tough, Sheriff? You're locked in now." I sighed. "Leonard, I swear." He threw his arms wide. "Welcome to HOA martial law, Sam. Let's see how you handle the wrong side of the rules." The crowd was trapped, golf carts still blocking us, but Leonard didn't know I had an ace. Huge Jack, already marching to the gate with a crowbar. Jack didn't flinch. He strode to the gate, crowbar in hand like a guy who'd bottled up years of rage and finally got the green light to unleash it. The metal creaked as he jammed the bar into the lock, muscles flexing. Leonard's smirk vanished. "Jack, don't you dare," he barked, stepping forward. Jack didn't look up. "Oh, I dare." The crowd held its breath as the lock strained. Leonard mashed his remote, but nada. Pamela gasped dramatically. "Oh no, budget cuts must have hit gate maintenance." Leonard whirled. "Pamela." She shrugged. "Transparency matters." With a final groan, the lock snapped, and the gates swung open. Cheers erupted. Jack tossed the crowbar over his shoulder. "Bill me for the damages, Leonard." Leonard's face was crimson. "This is rebellion. Anarchy. You'll regret this at the tribunal." I cut him off, holding up my phone. "Just talk to the county commissioner." "Your tribunal? Not legal. None of this is." The crowd's murmurs turned to fury. Lila crossed her arms. "So the fines were fake?" Tom nodded. "Money stolen." "Mrs." Elsie glared. "My medicine delayed for a scam?" Leonard raised his hands. "Let's not overreact." I grinned, pulling my cuffs. "Let's." He tried to bolt, made it 2 steps before Tom, and Jack hauled him back. He flailed as I cuffed him. "You can't arrest me. I'm HOA president." I patted his shoulder. "Not anymore." The crowd roared with cheers and laughter as we shoved Leonard into my squad car. Pamela sighed theatrically. "Oh, the betrayal. Corruption runs deep." Leonard glared through the window. I slammed the door. The HOA cops stood lost, paintball guns drooping. The twitchy one lowered his. Do we go home?" I tilted my head. "Depends. Want to turn yourselves in for unlawful detainment and assault?" They exchanged looks, then bolted, guns clattering to the ground. Pamela clapped. Order restored. Next, we tore out the spikes, Jack and Tom tossing them into a pile like war spoils. Mailboxes returned, trash cans reclaimed, deliveries rolled in. "Mrs." Elsie clutched her insulin like gold. "Bless you, Sheriff," she said, patting my hand. "You're a good one." I tipped my hat. "Just my job, ma'am." By morning, Dusty Hollow buzzed with the news. By noon, the town council dissolved the HOA for fraud and insanity. Leonard, in a cell, faced a laundry list of charges. The people were free. That night, I sat on my porch with a cold beer, no fines in sight. Tom plopped beside me. "Think another HOA will try this?" I sipped. "If they do, they'd better bring better lawyers." My phone buzzed, a fugitive sighting near town, possibly armed. I groaned. Tom laughed. "Vacation's on hold, huh?" I grabbed my hat, downed my beer, and headed to my car. Real criminals were out there, and for once, I could focus on them. But if an HOA ever tried this again, they'd learn fast. There's only one law in Dusty Hollow, and it's mine.